Hello and welcome. Well, today we're looking at the sale of ADB. You know, there are certain stories you hear in the news and you just hope that this must be wrong. I mean, you just want to be wrong. This is one of those stories. I mean, there have been so many issues that the unions have raised and makes you wonder, is it really true? Is this really happening? What is it that make us so detached from state businesses or corporations? You ask yourself, if indeed this bank was your father's bank or was yours personally, would you take the same decisions that you are taking now? I give an example. A man and a wife living in a house, they have too many children, so they need more room. So they decide, you know what, why don't we sell the house, get somebody to build on this house, and then we can rent from them. Would you take a decision like that? But these are some of the issues being presented to us, and we're just going to go into it and find out if it's true or not, and you know what the outcome would be. With me in the studio, my own friend and brother Ibrahim Amaliba, legal practitioner. Abraham Amaliba, legal practitioner. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And then John Asiape, who is a general secretary, Union of Industry, Commerce and Finance Workers.
Thank you.
You're welcome, John.
Thank you.
John, I'll start with you. John, you've raised some, you know, your union has raised some really serious questions. You know, I dare not ask you if it's true or not, but my question is, why now? I mean, because it's a period between 2009 to 2015. Could you have raised it earlier, or this is the time to strike?
Thank you very much. The signals began showing from 2012. But then in 2013, the IPO gave all of us an opportunity to look at the situation holistically from 2009. And then again, the 2014 financials of the bank made all of us get scared as to where we were going. But let me hasten to add that normally for unions, these things are not made public. We arrest so many situations on the quiet when there is dialogue and sharing of information. This particular one has come out because there has been reluctance to share information. So dialogue broke down, and because of the need to ensure that we save a national asset, and the fact that it is likely to create serious challenges for all of us, we had to come out. And that is why we are where we are.
John, I'll stay with you. How about, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a bank, and I'm sure most Ghanaians are happy if this is not going on, that you're trying to stop it. But how about customer confidence? Aren't you scared that customers may lose confidence, and therefore your good work may, you know, come to become bad work because everybody leaves the bank?
You know, there are two sides to it. Whatever you do, customer confidence is affected. But we believe the position we have taken to ensure that things are done to let good governance and better performance prevail, they rather will lead to much better customer confidence than allowing the decay to continue. So for us, it was a choice between allowing the decay, which was making customers uncomfortable anyway, and arresting the situation to ensure that confidence is rebuilt in the system. And we chose this one. In any case, we chose this one, but not the method. But the method was foisted on us due to the unwillingness of management to engage.
Because I was going to come back that, did you get any labor union person to like serve as an arbiter between you and management, or that couldn't happen?
You know, if we should get to that stage, the management and the union will have to agree. where we got to, honestly, if we had had our meeting on the 28th of April, we wouldn't be here. Management, we went for the meeting and management declined to meet us. 2 days later, they held a press conference. So then the battle lines were drawn. And we needed to, for the sake of country, for the sake of sanity, for the sake of good corporate governance, and so on and so forth, we chose to do what we did in response to some of the things that were thrown into the public domain by management.
123 million Ghana cedis, according to one of the reports, is being loaned out to a client, a single client. Now, that by far is a huge sum of money, which somehow the bank is not getting back. What are the circumstances behind this?
Unfortunately, I might not be able to go into the details because of some commitments we've made through the intervention of the Minister of Employment and Labour. We are rather looking at the way forward and rebuilding some confidence in the system. So I will hesitate to delve into the details of some of these things. But these are matters that the Bank of Ghana and the investigative bodies will have to look at. And we think that the capacity to look into them and ensure that the proper interpretations are given. Because, you see, perhaps we can all raise eyebrows about the amount. It's so colossal and so on. But banking practice may not necessarily see it as a wrong thing. So let's allow the experts to delve into it and advise. But our members who are bankers themselves know that it shouldn't have gotten to that point. So we are all waiting to see the kind of work that will be done to assuage the concerns that all of us have.
John, one thing that beats the layman or every loving Ghanaian is the decision to sell the headquarters and then re-rent it back from whoever is going to build it, and then pay money to park your own cars there. I mean, that decision, beggars belief. I mean, in your goings and comings, has there been any rational explanation behind that?
Not at all. In fact, we've had a meeting this afternoon, a general meeting in Accra, and the suggestions were that if the old head office building were to be sold and the new one will be bought outright, or initially staff were told that it's a BOT, you build, operate, and transfer. If that were the case, it would have served a much better purpose than going to rent more or less in perpetuity. And the arrangement involving the new one is even something that needs to be looked into because it's somehow shrouded in secrecy. We raised these matters last year. We're brushed aside. As a union, we have a mandate to delve into matters involving our members. And the manner in which management brushed us aside even made us much more curious and began digging into what actually was going on. And we believe that the investigations will bring out some interesting happenings, but there was no basis for leaving the old to the new place to just go and rent. We don't think it made any good. There was no good judgment in that. That's our view. We may be wrong, but at least we thought it was not proper. In Ghana, all of us would want to own our own building. If we have one, we won't sell it to go and rent, but we know what it means to rent. If we look at the amounts involved, some of the explanations that were given by management, we thought were also not really, there was not much logic in it, for want of a better word. And to the extent that those were the reasons for movement to a rented premises, we thought something really was amiss.
Let's bring the legal luminary in here, because I know there's always a legal twist. As the layman, we always say, oh, this is wrong, but probably legally they are perfectly right to do whatever it is they're doing.
I want to look at it from three perspectives. The intention to list on the Ghana Stock Exchange should be seen differently from the agitations of the workers as against management, and then the decision to sell the property. If you look at the idea to float shares, that for me is a very good idea, because it's a way of mobilizing excess funds to inject into the operations of the company, and that's for that matter the bank. And so you look at it from that angle, there's absolutely nothing wrong with floating shares. And so
bear in mind that they only won 200 million from their flotation of shares.
They won?
They were trying to raise 200 million. That's why they were floating shares.
Yeah, that's initial public IPO offer.
Okay.
But subsequently, people will buy into it.
Okay.
You know, there's after the IPO, there are subsequent ways by which you can buy the shares. And so you look at that process, and I'll say that there's nothing wrong with it. I'm sure the workers themselves will see that by allowing the company and the bank to float shares, it's a way of making the bank more attractive. Because we have Ghana Commercial now, GCB floating. We have, I'm sure, PBC is one of the government agencies that has now also floated shares. So there are signals that it's better to float shares. The second issue has to do with the fact that they intended to sell an existing property and then to go and rent. That is where I have a little challenge, and I tend to side with the workers' agitation. I am of the view that, yes, the explanation given by management was that that facility looks very small. It's not able to contain all the headquarters workers, so they needed a very large space. And what I did not understand was what kind of arrangement went into the building of the Accra Financial Center. Is that it? I'm told that that portion of land belonged to ADB. I'm beginning to find it difficult to understand what legal principle went into, you know, giving out your own property, then somebody will build on it, then you go and rent from that person. Because the land belongs to ADB. And so you would have thought that as part of the arrangement, it will be, well, if you have money to build on it, but I will take some portions of the building to be mine, and that will be in perpetuity. Then you can rent the others as a way of recouping your finances. But to give your own land out, somebody comes to build on it, then you go and become a tenant in that house. I'm sure so much legal thinking did not go into it, and that is where I have my difficulty. As for the internal matters, I think that those are matters that I cannot speak to, and they are in there, and they will be able to determine why they are asking for the removal of the board as well as the MD.
John, with the flotation of shares, you're still not 100% with it. I mean, so what's the union's position on that?
You know, with the whole intent, a series of consultations were held in 2013, and we had our turn, but then nothing was concrete. So we said, as the process evolves and matures, let us then come back and look at the issues, because you see, the details of what is going to be done is what will enable us to have some meaningful discussion. Again, we were also the agent union within the institution, being part of the TUC itself. And so we needed to also brief the TUC, because then, I mean, a national asset, we need to look at it. Council has talked about GCB. How it was done may be quite different from this one, so we don't know. If it's a GCB arrangement, then we'll all have an example or something to compare with. But if it's the SSB arrangement, that's also a different one. So we needed to be sure what was coming, but everything was kept to the chest of management. And from nowhere we heard that they were going to do the launching. In fact, that was what triggered the whole thing. So we said, hey, hold it. There's a commitment to get back to us. You haven't done that. So let's have a discussion. Before the discussion, please suspend the launch. That was what triggered the whole thing. Okay, so we have nothing whatsoever against IPO. It's the form that it will take, and that's why I'm sure there will be a stakeholder consultation. But the other issue is that, I mean, when management has told workers throughout the country that they have unrecoverable loans up to 600 million. In fact, our colleagues are even saying it could be more.
Wow.
And when management had also recently told them that if you are able to recover about a third of that, there will be no need for IPO. We believe that was just a statement made in passing, because you can still collect your whole 600 million, but you may still have to go for the IPO. You understand? Because can you imagine getting your 600 and IPO give you another 200? You are going to have a great institution. So all we want is to be part of the discussion. Once we understand, we will champion it. That was what we said. We will champion this whole idea. But as we speak, no, we don't know exactly what is going on. And we pick snippets of information as if there's some pre-arranged process. And if we are not careful, everything is gone. And that is what is making people apprehensive. Not only the workers, but there are other interested parties beyond the walls of the bank.
John,
so it's about a lack of transparency in terms of the process.
Exactly.
But the communication that is going out is that the workers are against the IPO.
No.
And if this is not made, as you put it out, it will be as if the workers are against the progress of the bank. And I think that that is an area that you have to work out. Because when I drive past your old premises, I see no IPO. Yeah. And I see another writing under no IPO is this building is not for sale. So the communication, no IPO, give the impression that workers are against the IPO. But from what I'm hearing from you, it's not the case. Yeah, but you just want it to be transparent. And no worker will be against it.
No. Of course, if you want to put the way I've expressed, you can't go on a banner.
Well, but then as a citizen with no locals, but a citizen, here, we've had reports where they've sold 24 properties, some of which are in very prime location, out of which they made just 3 million CDs or something out of that. And some of the prices they are quoting for the properties are, pretty, not ridiculous. Yeah, pretty ridiculous. Yes. I'm here. There's one property that actually went for 6,000 CDs. I mean, I don't even know how much you sell a garage these days. So if you have all these things going on, and you've sold 24 of your properties, then if I was a worker, I'll say, look, hold on. Let's actually see how much money we have before we go on an IPO. Because otherwise, I don't think it's fair on the bank or to anybody. Even those coming to invest in the bank, I'm sure the book should be a bit clean. I'll go with counsel before I come to you.
That is fair. You consider the fact that workers are an integral part of the bank, and they are one stakeholder that you cannot wish away. There's a need for management to carry them along. I don't know how the board also positioned itself. I thought that the board would have been in a better position to be able to, fashion out all these things so that there will not be that friction. But here, I'm hearing that the board has also been fingered in some of these things. That one board member was given a certain amount of money as loan. But like you rightly said, that in itself would not be a wrong thing to do, because the banking laws provide for how a bank should not be exposed to risk, how much loan you can give as against its net value and all those things. So the Bank of Ghana would have to investigate to see whether that has gone against its own regulation. But the cardinal point is that you cannot do all these things that they are about to do without the input of the workers. In some organizations, and if they had listed, I'm sure you would have had a representative from the workers on the board. And I don't know whether that is happening. I don't think it's now. But if you list, the Securities and Exchange Commission will tell you that you should have at least workers' representative on the board, knowing very well that the MD is also appointed by government. They would have wanted somebody who is a true worker, properly so-called, to be on the board, to take charge of some of these concerns that he's making now. But I think that the Bank of Ghana, and I'm happy the minister has stepped in to stop the process, particularly the sale of the building. Mm-hmm. And so we have to just wait to see the outcome of this investigation. But I think that management, because of the fact that they didn't carry along workers, has shot itself in the foot. And that is why we are where we are.
I'm going to take a break here. When I come back, I want to find out, number one, is it the norm for boards of a bank to get loans from the bank? And number two, is it the norm that, you know, coincidentally, some of the loans that are written off, there are certain board names that appear on it? Could that be a matter of conflict of interest, or genuinely they are hard up and can't pay back the loan? Stay tuned. We come back. Very much for staying. We are talking about the sale of ADB and all the supposed mishaps that's going along with it. With me is Abraham Mamaliba, a legal practitioner, to give us a legal perspective of the whole saga. There was John Asiape, who's the General Secretary, Union of Industry, Commerce and Finance Workers, but he has to leave. He has another program to rush to, and we're actually grateful that he was able to actually squeeze us and come and give us a little insight of what's happening. And I know in the press conference today, they've called off their standoff. They'll go to work, but they are still insisting that the MD is moved so that proper investigations can go on. But Abraham, board of directors, some of which have gotten loans, some have got revolving loans, and some of the bad debts in the bank, there are a couple of board directors whose loans have been classified as bad debts. Actually, let me acknowledge Mr. Austin Game, CEO of Game and Game Academy of Mediation, and everybody know he's a labor thespian, and if there's a labor issue, who else to talk to? Welcome, sir, Mr. Austin Game.
Good evening, Nana. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm grateful you can pick the call. This is a matter which is well within your jurisdiction, ADB staff against ADB management. Do you think the union did the right thing by coming public so that we all get agitated, or should they have mediated? But they are saying that mediation failed, and that's why they chose this option. I mean, what else could have been done?
Thank you. Well, honestly, normally it's difficult for mediation to fail. What it means is that the parties themselves do not want the matter resolved that way. Mm-hmm. As a mediator, honestly, I do not see the reason why mediation should fail. But if the parties themselves do not want the matter to be resolved and they want to play around it, fine, they can stay with it. So, but normally it should have been resolved. Secondly,
okay.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
No, I was saying that we actually spoke to the General Secretary, and he said that they tried to talk to management, but they felt management was not forthcoming. So maybe you're right.
Well, I don't know who was mediating for them. That perhaps could be one of the thorny aspects of it.
I don't even think they got to the mediation stage, because management wouldn't even talk to them for them to move to mediation. And that's why they chose to go public rather than deal with it in-house.
Well, it shouldn't have been so.
Okay.
Indeed, this should be a lesson to all of us, management, unions, workers alike. Generally speaking, if you are two people in a relationship at the workplace, and you cannot talk to one another openly, even as the law enjoins us to do, in Section 9G of the law, the Labor Act, it enjoins employers and unions to talk, to engage and talk, because without talking, there will never be solution. Mm-hmm. The only way is to talk, but when civilized people gather and they are talking, they have principles that guide them to engage in such a talk. But if for lack of some appreciation of how this kind of engagements are done. That is why we always have elders and other people around us. You call them in to assist you to talk. So I'm very saddened that matter should break down to this extent, and they've now come public. Everything is in the open. It's not the best for both of them. It's not too late. They can still engage themselves and talk it over. All they need is a criteria based on which they will have to talk. If they are tired, they cannot do it, they should look for people who will assist them to do it.
With all the, maybe I call allegations that now that the unions are presenting, and they are saying that, and they require investigation, and therefore the MD should step aside for investigation to go to, is it a fair demand?
Let me be very honest with you. I know all the gentlemen involved in this matter, both the union side and management side. We all live in Ghana. It's a small place you can urinate around. The reality is this. It is not fine when there is nothing really standing. There is the employer of the management side asking workers to be dismissed or to be sacked on just any matter without proper, going into the, further of the matter. It's not the best. So tomorrow, if management, if not even this one, but a new management is in place, assuming there's something and they say workers come on care of, will they be satisfied? Will they be happy? Obviously not. So I think that this is not something extraordinarily grievous that can break bones. Why don't they sit down and talk this matter out? If what we are hearing is anything to go by, such as loans, bad debts, such as management, misuse of powers, etc., etc., there are several ways of dealing with this matter. I know the General Secretary, he has a capability of getting his men and women to sit down and they talk it over. So I think I want to urge them. Steve is also a nice gentleman. They should all sit down and talk it over. If they cannot and they need help, an outside help, a facilitator, they should look for. They should look for whosoever they so desire to help them to resolve the matter. But going the extent to which they are going, they will soon lose their customers. They will soon lose their customers. And that will be terrible for both of them, and all of them might be losing their jobs. So I want to plead with them to exercise restraint, to allow good judgment to prevail in this particular matter, and they should be able to get it out of the way for them.
Mr. Kameba,
I have confidence in them.
How would a fair investigation go ahead if Steve is still at the helm of affairs? Wouldn't it be fair to just step aside, let the investigation goes on, and if he's clean, comes back and continue his work? If it's not, then stays at home. Because some of
Ghana is not an island. We live in a world that we can all just see things in the next 2 minutes if you want to see. There are several countries, there are several corporate bodies, several other such like things happening minute by minute across the world. We don't. It's not in every case that you ask people to step aside.
Mr. Gami, hold on.
Mr.
Gami, hold on. I have a legal practitioner in here, Abraham Amaliba. So let me just pick the legal side of it now. Is it not fair that, some of these allegations, things like, the sale of the bank, that's whether it's alleged or not, everybody knows it's indeed. Stephen Poggi has actually done a press conference saying, yes, that's the decision I took. I thought it was right. I'm yet to see anyone so far who agrees with him that, yeah, it's good. Sell your own land and rent it. The board borrowing money and all this. And being that it's a bank and it's a financial institution, wouldn't it be fair that, look, step aside, let's just check and see if these things are true. And if it's true, you don't deserve to rule the bank. If it's not, by all means, carry your bank away.
The Bank of Ghana is the regulator of all banks in this country. And as a regulator, the Bank of Ghana has the capacity or the authority to investigate some of these matters, malfeasance within banks. Because the Bank of Ghana is always interested in ensuring a sound financial system. And so if there are complaints about banks or even just one bank, it's the duty of Bank of Ghana to go in there and to find out what is happening in there. Now, as to whether the manager, the MD should step aside, probably because you may be thinking that he would tamper with evidence, is for the Bank of Ghana, is Banking Supervision Division to come to that determination as to whether his continuous stay in office would compromise their investigation. As he indicated, there are times when the facts are such that even if you leave the person in there, he's not going to be able to interfere with investigations. But there are some too where you will have to ask the person to step aside whilst investigation go on. And so in this particular case, because of the fact that some of this information were already in the public domain and the issue has to do with the sale of a bank, a property of a bank, I don't think that his continuous stay there would act as a barrier to the investigation processes. But if it were matters relating to maybe finances of the bank, matters relating to decision taken by the board, then I would have said that then that calls for him to step aside. But if it is just about the IPO and then the sale of the property, I think that his continuous stay there would not, as a matter of fact, be a barrier on the investigations.
I'm not going to mention the names, but with regards to the boards, those who have revolving loans, those who have taken loans, those whose loans have been cancelled and been board members, I mean, is that not serious enough for you to step aside?
This is a straightforward matter. There is a law regulating how banks can give out loans. Banks are not supposed to give out loans beyond a certain threshold. And also, even giving out loans to their own workers, there is a ceiling, how much you can give to your own worker. It should be a certain percentage of the worker's salary. So in this regard, what we just need to do is to play what has happened at the bank against the rules and to find out whether what happened by way of giving out loans to board members was within the regulations of the bank. If it's not within, then that means that whoever authorized and sanctioned that would have to answer for it. So this is straightforward. It can be determined by just looking at the rules. The Banking Act provides for how you can advance loans, you can give credit, you can give advances to workers as well as your board members. So I don't see this as very problematic. It is to
look at it. Is it not conflict
it,
of interest to borrow from a bank that you're a board member of?
Oh yes, you would declare your interest in the matter as a board member. Then it is when you don't declare your interest in the matter. If you hide behind somebody to go for the loan, that is where it's problematic. But you as a board member, you can go for loan from the bank, but it must be within the rules. Just as our workers of the bank can also be given loans, and you know workers are given loans to buy cars and those things. So the law regulates all these matters, but you must not act beyond what the law says. So if the bank says that you must give a loan to a worker equivalent to his 2-year salary, and you give the worker an amount which is equivalent to his 4-year salary, that is against the law, and that the person who advanced that loan will be held responsible. Okay,
I think in this case, one of the things why the workers were agitated was because the bank had said that no more loans for regular staff. However, somehow they felt the board were able to take money. And why couldn't they take money? It's still, have I still got Mr. Game?
Yes.
I'm still trying to get the board to step aside so that we can investigate, but I think I'm not doing a good case here.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
As to whether proper investigation can still go on while, we still have Steve as the #1 boss.
Well, it has been done several times in this country and outside this country. The person can be asked to step aside. That is also done. Depending upon the circumstance of the case. If it's such a case that has crossed the Rubicon and there is nothing that can be done about it, and the person has to step aside because if he remains there, they might dabble in the matter in a way that is inappropriate, then it can be understood. But if it's just because people want to flex their muscles, they want to prove where power lies, then we are not yet growing as a nation. We are not growing at all. So I want to urge both sides. This is not, from what I'm hearing, I work as consultant to other banks, and I want to say that I do not think that this is a case where we have to, come in the open and create such a very unpalatable kind of imprintable words about one another. I think they should let go the pains that both sides have and get seated and talk it over. All they need is a facilitator to sit between them. They shouldn't be legalistic overly. I mean, people have borrowed money. There are records. Fortunately, they are even announcing it themselves. Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, they are bankers. We should understand that when people borrow money from the bank, the confidentiality aspect should not be overruled. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, when this matter is resolved, other people who legitimately have some business relationship with ADB will have to advise themselves whether they should be going there to borrow money and continue to do business with them or not becomes another matter. Mm-hmm. And generally speaking, when these things happen, the one who generally will be the losers will be the workers. Because at the end of the day, it's the customers that pay your monthly pay. And so if you do not do business with them, you don't generate much money as well. So your pay lags behind, and nobody will understand you at the end of the day when you're about to go. Not just because of that, but because the credibility of Ghana and the bank itself is at stake. And so I want to urge them, this is not too late. They should be able to have this matter resolved in a manner that will help both sides. And Ghana will be the winner.
Mr. Gama, let me come in. Let me give you a last question before I let you go. The sale of Merchant Bank came with so many stories. We've had so many stories with ADB, and there are a couple of national banks looming in the background. I'm not going to give the names yet, with too many stories like this. I don't know if Labour's relationship with state-owned assets that we are unable to have, smooth transactions or transparent transactions. What is it with us?
If you take the case of Merchant Bank as a key example, mm-hmm. So many things went wrong with both the working people themselves, the management at the time, not the managing director who inherited the problem. A number of people inherited the bank over time. Mm-hmm. The gentleman who is the managing director of ADB now didn't start ADB. He also came in at a certain point in time. Some of these loans we are talking about might be given at a time when perhaps he's really not there. I don't know him. He's not my friend. So I'm speaking as a consultant that works in this country without looking at anybody's face. I do not think that this is a matter that should go the way.
Mr. Gama, let me take a break here. I think there's a technical fault, so I'll take a break, and then when we come back, we'll continue with you. Stay tuned. We're just coming straight back, and we'll find out more about which is the way forward. Thank you very much for staying. And sorry for the little hiccup. We're talking about the sale of ADB, but I'm going straight to my legal brother. But this time, I'm not talking legal. I just want to find out, what is it about Ghanaians that once we are handed state institutions, we don't seem to quite do it right? I mean, there are some people who have even got good intentions, but maybe the power gets to them, and therefore I won't talk to you, I'll do this, or what is it? Because it's not just one. There's so many, and I'm sure we can have 3 shows of instances where people have just taken over institutions and just ruined it.
But we can also talk about a few good ones, good examples. Graphic Corporation.
National Lotteries.
Is doing well. National Lotteries is doing well. But I agree with you that in some instances you have some of these things happening in some of our public institutions. It has to do with our perception, and sometimes it's a subculture, that what belongs to government belongs to nobody. And so when you get in there, what you do is to cut your portion and go away. Until we have a reorientation of what national properties are to us, and not to think about them as belonging to nobody, some of these things will continue. People think that when you are appointed into public institutions, that's the time for you to amass wealth. That's the time for you to cut what you can cut and leave the rest, if there's anything to leave. Then also, it is the problem can also be attributable to societal perception about people who have been appointed to public offices. You go in there when you are straightforward and you do your things and come out, people begin to point out and do that, oh, this man was a managing director, he has not been able to build one house. Look at him now walking. You know, that's societal pressure. So you are under some pressure to at least also steal something and come home so that you can live comfortable, and there will not be those fingers pointing at you. So it is about reorientation, and I think that we would have to inculcate that in the young ones coming. I'm of the view that we need to reintroduce the civic education thing that we used to have, where children will be taught how to become nationalistic and those things. You don't wait. For those of us who have grown, we have already grown. It's difficult to straighten a crooked stick. So we should introduce that in our basic education, and I think that at the end of the day, we'll be able to reorientate our people, the minds of our people.
I mean, if I bring it back to the case of ADB, is there not too many instances in one point? I mean, it's not like it's just only the sale of the house. There's, the amount of debt they are not collecting. Staff are not getting money, but board are getting money. Some board got money, it's being ruled off. When the manager came in, he said there were 7 general managers. It was too much. Now he has 14 executive managers. It's like one after the other, after the other, after the other. I mean, it's just not, is it not just too much for one institution?
Now I want us to hasten slowly. I'm sure what you are pointing at are allegations that emanate from the workers. But we don't have the management response to it. So if we take this as a gospel truth and it turns out that some of these things were not actually the case, then we'll be doing some injustice to the management. But nonetheless, these are allegations which, if not dealt with, can cause ripples within the bank. And we are talking about a bank. There's a saying that Sikam Perov. And as a bank, ugly noises coming from banks can even affect the confidence of customers. Not just that, now that it is intending to float on the float shares on the stock exchange, it's likely to even affect the confidence of the investor community. And so at the end of the day, even if they float the shares, people will not go in for it. If there are, I'm told that there are about 4 or 5 investors in this country. If they don't subscribe to your investment or shares, you are better off not even floating the shares at all. So if we are not able to package this well and then have a clean bill of health for this bank, I'm sure ADB would go down the drains, and I don't think that's where we want to get to. Because initially, when this bank was put together as a bank, it was supposed to provide some assistance to our farmers. Because that was the main reason why that bank was set up in, I think, 1965 thereabout. NIB was to cater for the industrial sector. To what extent is ADB still doing that? I think if ADB is not doing that, we need to get ADB back on its track. But I think that these ugly noises that are coming is not helpful to the bank.
The other thing, moving away from ADB, as a people, we don't seem to have a culture of sacking from the top or asking people to resign, or we haven't quite adapted here. I mean, was it South Korea or something where a ship sinks and the Minister of Trade thinks, well, I have to leave office. I mean, he wasn't the pilot. It's just that the shipping forms under his industry. If it's sunk, then the buck stopped at my door, so I'm going home. I mean, we don't seem to have that culture.
Yes, that is true. But then I can tell you that in those parts of the world, when people come out with evidence, they are cocksure evidence and they are prima facie evidence that when they are put out there, the person listening or affected will resign himself. But here we have on daily basis newspaper reportage, radio reportage. If we are going to hang on to those allegations, then everybody will be sacked from his work. Because the nature of evidence that we look for before you can ask somebody to resign is not available. People just make allegations and hope that somebody will bring their evidence. But in those parts of the world, when allegations are made, they are supported by evidence. And so it's difficult to situate the two societies together and think that it's happening here, it's not happening there. I think that time will come, as the society becomes sophisticated, time will come when people will back their allegations with evidence.
We watch the park, people go in front of park, and some of the things that come are mind-blowing. You listen to the sole commissioner, and sometimes he's just even shocked. And all these people, it's very rarely would you find somebody say, no, this was not fair, and therefore step aside. We never get that.
For the park, the law, there's a law that talks about prosecutions, from those reports and from those investigations. There is a financial court that has been established for those matters to go in there. I don't know to what extent those cases are being sent to the court. Those ones are strictly the issue of prosecutions. But you are talking about people resigning on their own. I am thinking that what we should be doing now is to be cracking the whip and applying the laws. If we did that, those who are engaged in these malfeasance and corrupt practices would think twice. Until we make corruption a high-risk venture, said that, and you should know, those who engage in those acts will do a balancing act. See, if I get myself corrupted and I get this amount, even if I'm going to be punished, for how long am I going to be punished? What's the suffering? They do those balancing acts. But if you make corruption a high-risk venture, they will think twice before doing it. So for me, it is about the application of laws. And fortunately for Ghana, we have the best laws in this sub-region, even in Africa. Our problem has to do with the application of the law. And sometimes to interference from big men like you, who would call the policeman and say that, oh, that's my brother, or forget, he has jumped the traffic light, but just forget. These are some of the things that make the application of the law very difficult. And I think, once again, it's about our orientation as a people.
Abraham, thank you so much for your time this evening. But let us hope that some of these allegations, maybe there are some good explanations behind which will come and to put us all at ease, because at the end of the day, it's a Ghanaian-owned industry, and once it succeeds, we all succeed. But let me take this opportunity to say deep condolences to Odene Hukwafo to the third and Nana Afrakuma the second, Akwamuhini and Akwamuhima. Odene Hunuso's mum, and Afrakuma has lost her twin sister. She's been on the throne for 50 years, and her twin sister has passed away. And so on Sunday, we shall all meet at Akwamufie. And what a day, how to celebrate Mother's Day. But being my paramountcy, I'll be there, and I say condolences to Odene Hukwafo the third and Nana Afrakuma the second. Thank you very much for watching. Tomorrow we'll be back to do this all over again. Thank you. Yes.